Mary, exhausted, cold and tired after traveling and having a baby and finally getting Jesus put to sleep. A little boy walks up and sees her and says, "What this girl needs is a drum solo."
You are live.
We are. Not really live because
we're recording.
Ain't nobody out there.
It's like Saturday Night Live. Kind of live.
Kind of like. I was reading about Chevy Chase the other day. And because, it's Christmas, so we got to watch Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, it's one of our traditions.
Got to watch Christmas Vacation. And apparently it's one of the most quotable movies of all time. Mm-hmm. Like, not even just Christmas movies, but it's one of the most quoted movies of all time. You probably, what's your favorite quote from Christmas Vacation? You must have one.
Oh, geez.
Just think of one and say it's your favorite. Shitter's full.
My son likes the scene with the light bulbs where he hands him the knot.
Yeah, here you go, Russ.
Here you go, Russ.
my favorite.
Which somehow I'm like, wait.
Mine, and I think that this is arguably one of the best lines ever in a movie. And it's when the lights are finally on and he's going around hugging everybody and Eddie's there and he's going, Eddie? And then at some point Eddie goes, "Are you surprised, Clark?" And he says, "Eddie, if I woke up tomorrow with my head sewn to the carpet, I wouldn't be more surprised than I am right now."
That's a good one.
I think
Shitter's Full's pretty good.
Holy shit, pass the eggnog.
Hey.
Where's the title?
Where's the title? How about this one?
You were
Why
reading
is the carpet wet, Todd? I don't know, Marg. I'm going to try not to cough. Go ahead.
What was that you were reading about Chevy Chase, and it was just about that movie, or was there more to it?
No, it's about how he's kind of an asshole to work with.
Yeah. I've heard that. I've heard that was same in the golfing movie.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think we're hearing that grinder outside on the microphones, Trevor? Are we hearing that? So today, Dan, the owner of this building, decided to have masonry work done. He knows there's one day a week we do a podcast. Every Monday,
make sure you
we do a
get it done in the
podcast.
afternoons on Monday.
And they're out there with a grinder.
So I read Saturday Night Live's 25th anniversary book, and there's a pretty decent section on how big of an asshole he is. And Terry O'Cherry said that
oh, yeah.
She said he's the only host that's ever come in and made her cry and others cry.
Yeah.
He's
kind of
he's miserable to work with.
And, he was a writer on Saturday Night Live first before he was, So he's kind of got he has like a content ego, I guess.
I'm sure he's a viewer of this podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So
pick
it up.
Probably
Don't
be
an
putting
asshole.
something in the comments.
Yeah, he's probably.
There's that show Community. He was this demented old guy on there, and it was really funny, but eventually he just disappeared off the show. And the rumor is that there was some cast party, and one of the characters, this black guy, I can't remember his name, but he apparently Chase got too drunk and was getting a little unfriendly with the black actor.
Oh,
and so he just got booted from it. But it was really cool because how they played the character off was that he had died and he wanted this whole ceremony to be like offering his ashes to the aliens and like preserve his body, I think, for the aliens. Because he was some like Grand Master Wizard. Yeah. Maybe in like more realistic sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wizards we're familiar with.
Yeah, he was so the truth of Christmas Vacation was originally Chris Columbus was supposed to direct it. And
boat guy?
Yeah, what?
The boat guy?
The boat guy. No, his grandson. And Chris Columbus was supposed to direct it, and even though he needed the work at that point in his career, this was 88, 89, after, like, even before they started shooting, he figured out he wasn't going to be able to work with Chevy Chase, and so he pulled back. Well, John Hughes was I think, producing it, but also didn't want to direct it. And so they ended up with some guy, I can't remember his name. But John Hughes brought Chris Columbus in the next year on Home Alone, and he made way more money.
Crushed it.
And
Both of those are pretty good movies, though.
So none of this has anything to do with sports. So we did the sports episode. Both of those are both in our regular rotation at home. Yeah, and you know what? Home Alone, like both the first one and the second one are both good. Whatever happened after that, I don't know.
Second one's Europe.
Right.
I don't think I've seen
the first one.
Third one.
The first one's Europe.
The
Second one's New
made
York.
by different people. So kind of like Santa Claus. Santa Claus with Tim Allen. The first one was magical. It was amazing. But it was made by an independent film company, and they just got Disney to do the distribution. Well, then Disney took over the production of it, and it turned to shit. Like everyone after that was absolute garbage. But the first one was amazing.
The Tim Allen Santa Claus, is that what I heard you say?
The first one's fun.
The first one.
I have not given that one a good go.
First one's a good.
Really?
First one's fun.
The first one was made by an independent film company. They did
right,
a really
I'll check
nice
it
job.
out.
You haven't watched that?
No, I've seen a little bit of it here and there, but I haven't.
Yeah, that was really good.
I haven't sat down from beginning to end.
Yeah, just remember.
All right, first.
Always keep a high quality fire extinguisher right in the kitchen.
All right, will do.
Okay, hang on.
What?
Dad, I think. Can you hit your left armrest? Something is vibrating a microphone. Are you hitting it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, what was that?
What, here?
Was that you, Cully?
This is me. But I just
maybe he's touching. Oh, he's touching the table.
Okay.
No, touching the table.
check mic. Mic check.
We good?
Mic is checked. We're good.
All right, sports. So last time you guys were here, we got into this sports discussion.
Largely around youth sports and
Yeah. And here's the thing, it wasn't very good. So what we're gonna do. That was good. It was good. But I came up with this idea. I had this idea recently about kind of a fun way to. I think it's fun. We haven't tried it yet, so we don't know if it's fun. But
try it.
But Trevor didn't throw up on this idea, so it might be okay.
It looks like it's fun.
And we're gonna play better
Now that
or
I can
worse.
see it.
Better or worse. And now you can imagine we could do this with a lot of things. That's too big. Said no one ever.
too much.
That's good. We could do this with a lot of things, but we're gonna do it with sports today. So, better or worse? You see, I already got the scoreboard loaded up, and we're gonna talk about things that are different now from how they used to be at some point. In
an arbitrary time.
Let's just say when we were kids, maybe a little bit.
Okay.
And then we're going to decide if we as a society in America are now better off or worse off on account of this. And you have to pick one. Like we could.
Got to go one way. No
In
in between.
because otherwise it's going to be really short. But
That might be better for us.
we can talk about it for a little while, but then we have to decide. Everybody has to vote, and Trevor gets a vote. We have to decide if it's better or worse, if we're better off or worse, and we're going to see how we do at the end.
Okay.
So, what's the first one, Trev? We have a slight network lag. There we go.
Oh, that's cool.
Kids start sports much younger today than they used to, and they're pushed to be competitive. Now, we did talk about this quite a lot in the last episode, so we don't really need to rehash that, but
Worse.
we're worse. We're worse off. Why?
From a number of perspectives, I believe there's real value in unstructured play. So going out in the street and figuring it out for yourself. I think there's value there for people growing up. There's actually, I think, a lot of value there in quality of actually competing, because you figure stuff out for yourself. You're not waiting on a coach to tell you.
Well,
something.
you hit on that. You asked me, like, when we were playing football in the schoolyard, how did it turn out? Well, we worked out all our own problems. Yeah.
And there's a lot of value in cross training And so pushing kids into competitive environments where they're singularly focused in one area, studies have showed that actually doesn't create better athletes or better participants in that sports necessarily. I mean, athletes, yeah.
Huh.
So we're much more structured, a lot more money, right?
Got to make that money.
But I think as a society, we're worse off by this.
What about the whole aspect of, like you mentioned last time, gives kids something focused to do. It gets them out from behind the, used to be the TV, now it's the screens. Maybe helps kids who are, maybe their home life isn't so great, but, it gets them, of course, I don't know, maybe the kids whose home lives aren't so great, parents aren't taking them to sports, but maybe they are. So I think about that one scene in it, since we were on the movie thing, in what is it? Rolling, oh my ass is swollen. City Slickers.
City Slickers.
Hiram Barry Shalowitz.
That's the
second
Brothers.
one. Remember they were talking about what's your worst day, what's your best day, and what's your worst day, and what's his name, the guy that plays the guy. What's his name? The guy that plays the guy that slept with that had the affair with his grocery store clerk.
Well, the dentist, isn't he the dentist?
Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah. They said he's talking about how his dad was he didn't have a good relationship with his dad, and it was really bad, except that there was always sports. Like they could always, like when there was nothing else that they could agree on, especially as he was growing up, he was like, we could always talk about baseball. We always had baseball. We could always talk about baseball. So I guess my point is, what about giving kids something that's like good and constructive to kind of go out there and do, as opposed to just having a bad home life or getting in fights on the street or things like that?
Yeah, I think there's aspects of it that are certainly better and aspects of it that are certainly worse. I'm going to go overall. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to see, like, does Outliers, the book, does it have any kind of data on this, on like what we're seeing as far as the suburbanites, who the only way you can really entertain a kid anymore is you have to have them in some kind of program. But if you look at like inner city and they're just simply playing basketball at the little covered areas, I mean, the competition's there. They're just not organized, or it's not, have to pay for it. But I'm going to go worse, just because my take on the worse is, I don't know how much they're still doing this, but where you just get the trophy for playing, you just get the participation trophy. I do feel like there's a lot of, like, it's about winning. Yeah, you can have fun and all that, but it's about winning. Winning feels good. It's just kind of how this world or this country and culture is built on. You got to go win it. You got to go take it. You got to want it. Discipline, all that good stuff.
So are we worse off because we got kids starting sports and being pushed to be more competitive, or are we worse because we wrote this to say they're pushed to be more competitive, but you make an interesting point. They're pushed to personally excel at the sport, but I don't know if they're pushed to win games. Scott, you would know that better probably, but
I think they're pushed to believe that they need to play more competitively.
Right. To be individually competitive, but because I'm all for, like, it's about winning the game. Like, you need to go out there and win the game. I think that builds qualities and virtues. But this push to be, as a 7-year-old, you need to be a really good damn baseball player, right? Or whatever. That part I'm not sure about.
Does it make the kids any worse, or does it make the parents worse? I feel like most of my negative thoughts on it are really just how the parents begin to act and live vicariously through little Billy and little Susie.
Well, I think it does make the kids worse per se, but I think you miss out. I think the kids miss out on a lot of value and other parts of life because they're chasing this mythical Division I college scholarship, or they're
right.
Like there's this whole notion of
the imbalance. Really.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why I think it's worse. I think I think we've lost the balance. There's a place, don't get me wrong. I was a competitive athlete way back when. Like there's a place for it, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in my own personal life. But there's got to be a balance for most of the kids, for 90% of them. For the 10%, they're actually, going to go be college athletes and professional athletes. Yeah, so be it. But most of them are not. And there's so much more to be done. There's so much more to learn. There's so much other things to benefit from that this false notion that you're going to be, the next whatever.
I didn't realize that was so prevalent, really, that so many people are under that kind
it's interesting to me because my kids are come and gone, right? And my playing days are way behind me. But you talk to parents today and they're driving. I've got a colleague who's driving up to the Woodlands from, south of here. So an hour up, an hour back. And he's questioning, like, why am my son, he's not good enough to play college Division I sports. Like he enjoys it, but why are we having this huge commitment?
Right.
For
eating dinner in the car and everything.
When we could do this locally, like I could get the same value locally with much more balance to my life.
Right.
At frankly a lower cost point.
Because the value would be learning how to go play on a team and win and be determined.
Still win. I mean, I enjoy going to watch a little league game as much as a major league game. There's still competition. I'm still like more. It's still right.
Trevor's leaning in.
Just to get it moving.
Just get it moving. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Producer.
My observation on this is, you're all looking at the cons of it and the bad results of this, of getting kids in competitive sports, but the pro to the alternative, going off of what Scott said about keeping them in street sports, playing on and playing with other kids on their own, quote unquote, unstructured. I know what you mean by that, as opposed to organized sports is a structured. But what kids get from playing just with themselves and with other kids.
This is a family show.
Just knew that was coming.
I like how the youngest one in the room is trying to keep it above brow.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
Playing with themselves.
Playing sports themselves starts off unstructured, but they create their own structure. But more detailed is they discover the structure.
Yeah,
because there is a structure.
You're talking Lord of the Flies kind of thing.
Well,
which happens on every playground that you ever went on.
Without the skewered pig's head, but they discover the structure and the value of it rather than adults telling them how to do things for their own vicariously, such like Cully said, but they're able to discover the structure of things and why rules are important,
right? And
then build off of that themselves.
So what are you voting for?
Worse?
You're saying worse
because I think if you put them in an organized sport, then it's much harder for children to conceptually understand the benefits of rules.
Gotcha. Yeah. So here's. I'm gonna take a little bit of a turn here, because if I think strictly on kind of one dimensionally, totally agree with you guys. But if I think fourth dimensionally, as Doc Brown encourages me to do,
time. What's the fourth one?
If you look, time is the fourth. If you consider it, if you consider this trend of kids in sports right now in the whole picture, right, of society today. How do I say this without, making a lot of parents feel like I don't think they're being good parents? But excuse me. But if you look at the current state of the family, of the nuclear family in America today, if you take the sports thing out of it, I'm not sure what you're left with.
I can tell you what you're left with, and you can see it at just about every restaurant today where the parents walk in, they have their little new iPads, they give it to little Johnny and little Susie, and they sit there and stare at the screen. Because that's easier. That keeps them entertained. You don't have to do anything. Just like the sports has become, like, just give them some entertainment.
But doesn't that argue for worse? I mean, the point that you have to leverage, or we need to leverage this organized sport to effectively put in a family structure or a father figure or whatever it is to inject that structure in these kids' lives.
No. So I agree with you that
I think it depends on which direction you're looking at the question. Is it better or worse compared to what we used to have, or better or worse compared to what is coming?
Are we as a society, are we better off having kids in sports today? Right. So if you use it comparatively, I guess what I'm saying is, if we look at it as a point in time, without the sports thing going on today, we might actually be worse off, because then there'd be nothing but parents who don't parent and kids who don't.
True and not true, but the way the not true from the way the question's worded. If you're talking about competitive sports, if you're talking about like top tier, and I'm thinking about soccer because that's the world I know, particularly here in Houston, you can get those same benefits from doing local organized sports, at your neighborhood gym or on your neighborhood field, as you do from doing it, an hour away because, whatever structure is.
Yeah. But we don't.
But we don't, because we're in this completely different mindset of
if all of a sudden the kids in competitive sports today disappeared, if we just pulled that out of the picture, I think we'd be worse off.
I think it's hard.
If we pulled organized sports out of the picture, we'd be worse off.
I think it's hard to, and really, it'd be a stretch to think of anything that it's gotten better if you're comparing it to how things were 40 years ago.
We're worse. Yeah.
I really just don't see a whole lot. Because the money's there, the money's infiltrated, the pride, the egos, the parents act like assholes. It's slowly but surely getting
this is an interesting thing.
Worse.
Right, which is that, and oftentimes it makes me think of Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson, because he talks about how
I got that on my coffee table.
Do you? It's a great book.
I love it.
It's a short one. You could read it.
I could read.
I'm not much for long books either. So he explains that all the mistakes in economics, in economic policy, are made by looking at one thing and the impact of one thing on one particular group of people and not considering the whole. That's it in short, right? The first chapter is the lesson, which says that, and then the whole rest of the book is showing how that's true, right? So when we try to evaluate something, like when we say, well, is our society better off on account of this, and we only look at that one thing relative to how it was, we're not taking into account what else has changed and whether this one thing, maybe now, even though it seems like it's worse in this direction, it might actually be the antidote to some other bullshit that has happened that we're not really, right? So anyway, Trev, give me a B. I want to be the nonconformist on this one.
I think you should be. It's your show.
So if you think about it in like terms like relative to other things that are also changing, then maybe, even though I will go on record as saying I think it's absolutely ridiculous that people spend all this time in cars driving. Like,
don't get me wrong. I'm a huge. I mean, the reason I wanted to do this the first show, like, I'm a huge supporter of athletics.
Right. I know you are. Yeah. So you're an athletic supporter right now.
Some of that seems like it's keeping up with the Joneses. There's a little bit of ego,
fear of being a bad parent, right?
Yeah.
My kids, everyone else is doing this. Like I'm failing my kid. I'm falling behind. Blah blah blah.
Mr. Producer, give us number 2, please. And American pro sports have way more international players than they used to. So, not.
Are we saying that we? I mean, that's a true statement, right?
Right.
That's a true statement.
Right.
Open borders.
Is it better or worse? Are we better or worse off that our pro leagues now are heavily populated with players from other countries?
I don't have an issue with it. I don't have an issue with the diversity.
It does have a negative impact on kids being put into our own kids, this country being put into competitive sports because there's less of them, so it's less likely that they'll actually make it.
Because we're importing the talent from other countries, basically. So if sports are part of our American culture, but then at the highest level, we're importing people from other countries. Is that
I mean, you're going to ask me to go. We got to go one way or the other. Here's my issue with this. At the pro sport level, I don't actually have a problem with this. I think it actually kind of blends in with the rest of America. If you're good enough to do it, you're good enough to do it. And if you're not good enough to do it, you're not good enough to do it. If that means that to be the most competitive professional sport in the nation, you're importing talent from the outside, get better. I don't like to say that necessarily, but I mean, that's the truth of the matter. I keep going back to this because I'm a soccer person. Where this breaks down for me is if you look at something like the MLS, our pro soccer league, and look at the success of our national team, it's directly tied to how young players are being produced and governed through those professional leagues. So having more international players in those spots is deterring young U.S. talent.
That's what we're saying, yeah.
But not from us. But it isn't because the MLS is the top. It's because the national team is the top, and so you're deterring talent development here, which is impacting your national team.
Yeah,
which is a little unique to soccer, right? I mean, we don't necessarily basketball. We have some international play. You don't see this in football, American football,
right?
You see it really in baseball.
And just to be clear, this question, so we're not talking about players, American players of different nationalities or ethnicities. We're talking about where you
international players
bring in a player from another country, and now you've signed him to your team.
I don't know. I don't necessarily see a worse, not a very heavy one anyway. I think majority of it is diversity, and my mind keeps going to what Scott hit on is if you're good enough to make it and you're good enough to play, I don't care where you.
No, I will tell you as a fan, I'm less interested.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in watching. Like I gave up my local Houston Dynamo. I had season tickets from the time they joined. We gave them up finally because when we gave them up, the majority.
You were that guy like with the blue and yellow body paint.
I'm there, man. Yeah. Majority of the team was not U.S. They were, wherever.
So it's sort of
like there was no one to root for.
That's what I thought about was what about that like home team like role model? Like it already got I think that particularly, I mean, at our house we were basketball fans, and now you got players on your hometown team who don't even live in your hometown. Never mind, aren't from your hometown. And so when you think about that, like the historical role that sports played in American culture and the role models and, you know, those guys that you could relate to, like, I want to be like, you know, Mickey Mantle, or I want to be like Joe DiMaggio because he's married to Marilyn Monroe. You know, that sort of like, as you're growing up or as people, you know, you look at those heroes, I think that part kind of goes away when people are not from here.
Yeah. Agree.
So I mean, because I'm leaning towards a better on this, although I don't like it, right? I mean, I don't, would you put in quotas on professional teams that says you have to be at?
Well, there's been discussion about that, right? I think there's actually been some talk about that. And
this happens in other leagues.
Yeah.
I mean,
you have to, you know, I don't know. I suspect that my concern is somewhat conceptual and maybe doesn't really practice, because I'm not sure that the fact that our athletes, our professional athletes, don't provide good role models for our kids, I don't think is mostly hindered by the fact that some of them come from other countries.
No, I would agree with that.
I think we got a whole lot of professional athletes that come from this country that aren't good role models, right? So I think, however, I think there is some benefit in what you said, which I think is, or one of you guys said, the one thing that's absent from our society right now, especially in the modern parenting, everybody gets a trophy, or this new thing that I've been learning a little bit about. I think I'm a little behind the times on this, but this concept of gentle parenting. Are you familiar with this? Gentle parenting.
What is it?
Yeah. Gentle parenting is, there's some books.
I'm pretty sure my kids would tell you I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah. Well, so it's like this. You look angry. Are you feeling angry? Do you need a hug? Right? Like that sort of, it's kind of creepy. It's almost like the Stepford Wives version of parenting.
Sounds like the advice you get in like marriage counseling, where you never use words like never or always.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I made you feel that way.
Yeah. So
that's your problem.
I was reading an article.
You're feeling that way.
I was reading an article about this. So I find myself having to read shit that I ordinarily wouldn't read, just because now, you know, hosting a podcast, you try to come up with like ideas of things to talk about, right? And
gentle parenting.
And one of the examples was this woman. We'll just call her Hannah because that's her name. We're
not changing names to protect the innocent here.
and she was at her 6 and 9 year old boys were visiting, like, I guess overnight at a family friend's house. And in the morning, when her 2 boys declared that they did not want to eat whatever had been made for breakfast, the dad of that, now Hannah's a single parent. The dad of that household said, well, that's what we got. You can take it or leave it. And Hannah, the mom, was stunned. And she said, my reaction in my head was, we can do that? Because I'm making like sausage and toast for this one and eggs for this one. And I'm right. And like this whole thing about, you know, and it even goes really little with kids who are like, apparently like a little kid on a play date throws the applesauce cup because they wanted graham crackers, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You look angry. Are you feeling angry?
So I think I've got a good idea of what you're talking about, and I see it quite a bit.
Wow. So I think there's something to be said for, like, if you look at professional sports and you see these guys coming, most of the time these guys coming from other countries, they're not here, you know, to get their like face on the like Nike ad and all. Like, they're working their ass off, and
also to get their face on the Nike ad so they can get the endorsements that are
perhaps. but they're not associated with that, with the glamour. No. Most of the time they're associated with, you know, I worked hard, I played hard, I became good, and I got this this
I feel
spot.
like a lot of the international, I could be wrong, but I feel like, there's an argument to be made here, but I feel in my mind when I think the majority of the international players that I'm thinking of are coming from a standpoint of we didn't have a lot and we worked our asses off to play. And that's all I want to do. It's not, I almost feel like they're kind of like 20 years behind where America's athletes are at.
But isn't that the same
the fame, fortune,
theme for the American pro athlete?
I think the American athlete is a little more fame and fortune oriented.
But their backgrounds, they can come from. They can certainly come from. I'm going towards this kind of this notion of motivation, right? Like where they're heading might be one thing, but where they're coming from, the motivation to if you think about the dedication it takes to play at that level, you have to have a singular motivation.
Yeah, that's fair.
Along with a ton of talent and some God-given.
But in terms of the image that it's presenting, I'm going to say for this one, I'm going to say that we're better off because I think that it does our young people some good to see.
I'll go better on this one too.
If you're not going to get it done, we'll find somebody who will.
Yeah, I'll go better on this one.
What do you think, Trev?
I'm not happy about it, but
3-3. 4-3. We got cherries.
Nice. Cheers.
See, we had lemons.
Built this?
We had lemons, and now we got cherries.
Excel 300 level here.
We got cherries now. What do you think, Trev?
I'm looking at it from like an MMA perspective because I watch a lot of.
Yeah, that's your thing.
And a lot, if not the majority of top, especially if you look at UFC, the fighters are from Eastern Europe and Brazil.
You're gonna have to speak up because I got a grinder in my ear over here.
Sorry,
grinder.
They're from, bro. Isn't that the gay app?
I think that's one of them. Yeah.
We'll do an episode on that.
How big is this building, and how many hours are there today? And they're right here when we're doing this. Today.
They started on that end, worked their way here. That's funny.
Go ahead.
Most of the best fighters, a big chunk of them are from Eastern Europe and Brazil, and you're talking about how the backgrounds can be the same. They're from poor backgrounds, but they work their ass off to be there. However, I think maybe I don't know for sure. This is speculative, but I think players in America are more exposed to the end result of this fame and fortune and glamour, whereas international players aren't exposed to that as much. So you have to have the same motivation, same drive, but the end result is different. So a lot of the Brazilian fighters and Eastern Europe fighters, when they do hit the top, they're not as showy about it.
One of
the best fighters, Habib Nurmagomedov.
Trevor's hitting on where I was going.
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll one of the best UFC fighters, Habib,
East Texas.
Northeast Texas. Yeah,
I remember.
He became one of the greatest fighters ever, but cut his career short because his dad, who was his primary coach, died, and so he left, and now he just lives out in somewhere. Tyler. He lives out somewhere secluded, very simple and everything, and I think it's the beginnings of players can all be poor or less fortunate.
Yeah,
but they're not all humble beginnings. I think a lot of people mistake humble beginnings with poor beginnings.
Yeah, fair.
So I think it's good because those sorts of fighters have become very popular amongst the next generation of MMA fans.
Yeah.
Because of that humility?
Yeah. And because it's on a mass scale, it's because it's more niche and you don't see it as much. But you take other fighters such as Conor McGregor.
That's exactly who I was thinking.
Who, however, I think his situation is a little more.
That's all I want to say.
Convoluted.
Whiskey is good.
Whiskey is good.
He's a good
It's Irish whiskey. Yeah.
So I think it is better because it's a different. En masse, it's a more humble influence.
Yeah.
And I think it's better for people for the next generation to take to that.
So in short, what we all agree is that if we can't provide good examples, like good role models for kids out of our own society, we might as well import them.
Bingo.
Yeah.
We've done that before.
Yeah, we have done that before. Okay. So we got four V's on that. What's the next one? Mr. Producer.
Who built this Excel sheet out?
How do I learn
This is impressive.
College athletes can make money on their name, image, and likeness.
Oh yeah, this is way better. Yeah, nope, nothing ugly coming from this.
Yeah. Well, but so there are some people that are like, look.
I don't think this is actually unfair.
Yeah.
Better or worse, I'm not sure about. And this is different than paying college athletes.
Different from, yeah. So you're not talking about paying them to be on the team.
We're talking about
that you are allowed to make money.
A company wants to use your name, your image, and they're going to pay you to do so.
So I had my first initial kind of impulse reaction to this was, well, this can't be good, right? Because it means that kids are going to be, focused on this instead of actually getting an education. And then I thought about it, and I thought, nobody's really fucking focused on getting an education anyway.
That's the real problem with college sports, right?
So we might and most of the kids who are going to benefit from this NIL sort of money making, they weren't they're not philosophy majors, right? Like they're not, they're probably not engineers. They're probably not. I don't mean
psychology majors.
What I mean is they're not in college to pursue. I'm not saying they're not smart enough. I'm not saying they're not capable. I'm saying, and especially when I found out that there's a registry, so you can, as a college athlete, if you want to change schools, because if you go to this other school, you can get better money. There's a registry that you sign into, and there's an online tool to manage that movement. Mm-hmm. So what that tells me is you're not really there to learn to get a particular education.
No.
You're there for your for the sports and the money.
Your goal is professional.
So it's really not. So thinking about that, I thought, well, if my concern is we need to give kids the right education and they're being distracted by all this, I think that's kind of a red herring, because I don't think
the issue lies somewhere else.
Yeah, the issue is, first of all, I'm not sure that most of our universities are capable of delivering an actual education these days. And secondly, if they were, I don't think the kids that are going to benefit from this NIL thing, they weren't there for that particular education in the first place. So why not just let them go do the thing that they want to do?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this one a little bit, but I'm with you. My initial reaction to it, and it still is, but it's yet to be seen. I think we've opened Pandora's box, and we've yet to see the negative impacts this could turn into. I think you see it a little bit in the transfer portal. There's a little bit of chaos, kids bouncing around, blah, blah, blah. There's also a fear of the haves and the have-nots getting even greater, where if you're gonna have an NIL and you take a kid that's in, Division II, you just take the best player off of some of those smaller schools, bring them over, let a car dealership put their face on the side of it, and they're off and running. But I'm also becoming more on the other side, that very much in line with what you're saying, that they're not there for the education. The vast majority of them aren't thinking education. It's money. I want to make the money now. And possibly, I did hear one argument that a possible pro, I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, is it could keep kids in college longer and actually finish school because they're not
Rather
chasing
than
jumping out and going to the professional to make their money. However, if they're good enough to where they're going to get pulled in one of the 6 rounds of, let's say whatever it is, or I'm thinking NFL in my mind, but certainly you can think other sports.
NBA, whatever.
They're going to jump. The money's going to be better than what they're going to get off of Tommy Vaughn, Ford.
Yeah. This is
gallery
for me.
farted.
This is an I don't care.
Yeah.
For that reason, I think we have real issues in college sports.
Yeah.
I think the value of college sports is being undermined by money, and I think a lot of the players at the Division I level are expecting that they're going to go, or they think they're going to go pro, or they're going to make, and they're not. And so we're missing a huge opportunity, and we're just paper macheing over top this notion of college sports, which is a huge mistake. But this particular issue, if a company wants to pay them, for their face and likeness while they're doing whatever.
Yeah, the other thing I thought about is that it really impacts It's
a pretty small number of people.
Of how many students. However,
having the face of some kid on Tommy Vaughn Ford or Sewell Cadillac or whatever it is.
Is that where they end up mostly?
I don't know.
I assume,
but it's not going to get me to go down there.
With the University of Houston football players, there's for some law firm. I'm assuming they're getting.
He goes
whatever.
He's a competitor to the guy with the hammer.
Yeah.
I think that so as a society, while I don't think that it's necessarily worse for the kids who get into this, it's probably fine for them. But as a society, I would say, I think that, this would be a whole other episode, but I think that there's so much wrong with what we're doing in the way of education to start with.
Exactly.
This just adds one more thing into the mix to take away from the focus of how ought we to be educating kids.
Yes.
And so it's like one more stupid thing.
Yeah, why not?
That's happening.
Yeah.
So
why not? Sure.
The
whole thing's a shit show. So why not?
I don't know if it's gonna. I don't know if
let the kids make some money.
A big impact.
No, I'm with you.
I don't know if it has a big impact. Like I'm going to give it a W, but I'm going to say it's worse. It may be worse.
You've changed my mind.
Only a small.
I'm with you. You've changed my mind for that very reason. I'm with you. I'm going W as well.
You're on
for the same reason.
W.
It's not helping.
Yeah. So we're not. Yeah. Trev, what do you think? By the way, as the producer, you can abstain from voting. You can vote present.
No, my name's there. My name's there.
Counted.
You can vote present.
I think that because it takes away from the college focus, the college quote unquote education, I think that makes it a good thing. Because higher education is.
Don't make me laugh. Yeah, so it sucks anyway, so we might as well distract them away from the thing that sucks. Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't say it necessarily sucks. I think it gives kids who don't want that sort of career path of an engineer or whatever. I think it gives them an outlet rather.
But it's short term. I mean, it's a.
Well, and I'm looking at it similar to an internship.
Yeah.
So I think there should, I don't know what the rules are on it. I don't know exactly how it works, but I think there should be limitations as to what a student should be allowed to do, just as how a higher education intern has limits to what he can do in whatever job field he's pursuing. Yeah. So I think it needs to be, I think it should be actually embraced, and I think there should be more looked into more and more structured, and so that students have an opportunity, instead of just having money thrown at them, there are resources for them to embrace it as a career path, treated similar to an internship.
Yeah, I think some of my issues or concerns can easily be addressed. Like maybe you got to graduate to get the full amount. I think you just definitely need to take a financial management type of class to understand how to manage the money so you don't blow it all.
You got to
do a Dave Ramsey class or something. Yeah. I think there also the money, if it's significant, I think it should be, and I don't know what significant would be. I would say anything over $250,000. I think a good chunk of it should be put in some kind of trust that they don't have access to it until they're a little older. A good chunk of it, they can get the big early, maybe 20% of it or whatever, but something to help guide them. I mean, you're talking about, I don't think there's too many people in this room at 18, 19 years old. If you were to give me $250,000, I'm going to be smart with it.
Yeah.
Hell, I don't know if I'd be smart with it right now.
Right. Yeah.
Like, let's go. Let's have some fun. Like, you can put some parameters around this to make it a good thing. And that's to help these kids be smart. Some of this money, these guys may not even make it to the pros, but this could be generationally impactful for them.
Fair. That's fair.
Do something smart with it.
Yeah.
Well, the ones that do make it to the pros won't need it.
Yeah.
Right.
If approach it abstractly and then build off of there, rather than throwing money at them, you present the money to them. So then you give it a structure and teach them and give them opportunities to get the money and pursue it post-college as a career.
Yeah, yeah. So it could be turned into something that helps people, has an impact.
I'm going to go better.
I'm
going to go better with asterisks.
With asterisks. Well, in other words, we haven't figured it out.
Kind of the other way.
It's
going worse with it. At first, I was like, I don't really give a shit.
I think our Congress, they're supposed to get involved and help put some parameters around it. And
that'll
they've been
fix it
impressive.
for sure.
So far, they've been real impressive.
Oh my God.
So it's going to get fixed if Congress is looking at this shit.
Sure, it'll get sorted out.
Every time I
kids
hear,
are going to be.
There's one phrase that goes through my mind every time that I read about whatever Congress is up to lately, and the one phrase, actually, it's only two words that goes through my head every single time is "stop helping."
Now the two words are gay sex.
Yeah, well, right. There's that one. All right.
There's that
number 4. The fourth and final, because there's no 5 this time. Well, we got cherries so far. We're taking a surprisingly optimistic view of our country.
Oh, now I get it. Those were lemons earlier.
Lemons earlier, and now we got cherries.
This is advanced.
That's impressive.
Pro athletes have socio-political influence.
Oh, like our,
like we care. Actually, I read something the other day. It was a woman.
Boo.
Well, we know that almost the vast majority of YouTube audience is men, so we can actually get away with that. It's true. It's true. Instagram audiences are mostly women, and YouTube audiences are mostly women.
This is true?
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no idea. Okay. Fair enough.
So I was reading this woman had I think she's like a social media personality or something. And she had come out with a statement, and I think they're in England. I don't remember if she is British or she moved there. But anyway, she made a statement that was sort of a rah-rah thing for whatever was happening with the royals at that particular time. And the people in her circle, were like, how can you be supportive of the royals because of all these, terrible things that they're apparently. And her reply was, and I thought this was very interesting. She said, in so many words, she said, and it was a woman, so it was a lot more words, but She said,
I think I know her.
Did you? There was okay. So a little sidebar. There was a guy. I saw this one little clip on something, and this dude goes. He's talking to this woman. He goes, "Did you know that men arrive in heaven before women? They get there first." She's like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, it says right here in the book of the Revelation. It says." And he opened the seventh seal, and there was silence in heaven for about a half an hour. That's how we know.
It's pretty funny. I like it. It's pretty funny.
So she said, Trevor, remind me that our family members are not allowed to watch this one. She said, look, irrespective of whatever the royals have been involved with or done or not done or whatever, the point is that they're symbolic and they represent certain things, certain qualities in society, like propriety and good manners. And, she had a kind of list of things that I was like, yeah. Like, the office of the royals represents these things, right. And it reminds us of those qualities that we ought to have: good judgment, respect for others, certain formality in certain situations, right? Prudence. And she said, in America, your royals are celebrities and athletes. Yeah. And they set the tone and the attitudes and the principles and all of this.
And I think she's spot on.
Yeah.
With that.
Oh yeah, I agree.
So and now we have, and it makes me also think of, there was a time when somebody was interviewing, what's that dude's name that used to be married to Angelina Jolie? Brad Pitt. And they were asking him what he thought about something that was happening in the political situation at the time. And he goes, "What are you asking me for? I'm an actor.
I have a GED."
Right.
I'm just kidding. I don't know what the hell he has.
So what I've noticed in recent years, especially since in the last few years, is the pro athletes, really certain ones of them seem to really have an outsized voice. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying everybody shouldn't have a voice, but they have an outsized voice in socio-political issues. And I saw a video the other day. LeBron James is walking in the middle of a Lakers game. No, not a Lakers game, because he would be in the game. But it was some other game. And it's like the national anthem is playing. And he just like walks in with his family, and they're finding their seats, and they're sitting down and everything. So, all right, I'm going to shut up. What do you guys think about this?
Wait, so so was your point that they like interrupted the national anthem?
Yeah.
And that there's no respect.
So the problem I have there is when the national anthem's playing at a sporting event, you stop at the entrance,
right,
and wait and take your seat. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. So the point is, my point, and I guess I kind of fast forwarded through some stuff there, but my point is, you got somebody like LeBron James who has a very loud voice when it comes to social political things, and he's got this opinion, and people, and it's in the news. LeBron says this, but he's also a guy who doesn't like take the time to.
Okay. Right, I'm with you now.
Yeah. Right. I'm not really sure if I could ever find a better on this one. I think a lot of it depends on, do I agree with the opinion of the athlete? And right now, the only athletes that come to mind, LeBron being one of them, I don't agree with 95+% of what they have to say. Either what they're saying or how they're saying it might even be enough for me to be like, nah. So I'm going worse on it, but I cannot think. Maybe Trevor might be able to think of somebody like who out there has a platform large enough that the pro athletes' vocal articulate, has something to say that you agree with. I can't think of one right now. There might be some. I think small injections here and there, but
should it even be a thing?
No. Do you remember? I don't know if you've seen this quote, but there's an interesting quote kind of along these lines where Johnny Carson was quoted about why doesn't he make political jokes and weigh in on his politics? And I'm obviously paraphrasing and butchering it. And he just made a comment about how the power of the platform is something that you need to respect. And the moment you start weighing in on one way or the other on your political views in a platform that large, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, here we are. It's like the whole damn
It's almost
thing
the opposite of Jordan's comment about Republicans buy sneakers too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Right.
So here's my problem with this. Here's my struggle with this. Individuals, whoever they are, famous or not, the fact that they have a voice and are willing to voice it, I have no problem with. You've got an opinion. The fact that people listen to them for no other reason than they're famous is a struggle for me. Like, I don't care what Brad Pitt says about politics because I don't have any reason to believe that he knows anything more than I do.
Yeah, so so the first part,
people listening is the problem.
The people listening is the
it's just
problem.
a matter of free speech, right?
Yes.
Right. Like, if you're famous and you want to you've got a platform and you want to, I like what
I do too, though.
I think if more people had the prudence who would have ever thought that Johnny Carson would be associated with prudence, but to say, okay, well, I'm wielding something here and I need to respect what I'm wielding.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it is free speech, right? Which last I heard, is still a thing. So, but why do people listen? Why do people care?
I don't know.
That is $1 million question.
So I think as a society, we are better off.
It goes back to those kids being pushed into sports. It's those little bastards that are listening.
Well, the question.
No, you're not far off, in my opinion.
The question is, so this is why, if you'll notice, the question is very cleverly worded. Not to say that pro athletes are expressing their opinions, but that they have influence.
I think we're worse that. It's hard to say. It goes back to the representative thing. I think pro athletes as role models, and famously Barkley saying, "I am not a role model."
Yeah.
And frankly, anyone that would look at Charles Barkley goes, "There's a good role. Like, let's do that."
Although I like about 98% of everything he had to say. Later.
Yeah. In fact, him saying, I should not be your kid's role model. Like, I should be able to say whatever I damn well please because I should makes an interesting point in and of itself. I want
the accountability of being a role model. I just want to be able to say what I want to say.
I think that's the problem right there, though. I mean, do you have a role model? Do you have someone that you look at and you go, I hang on every word this individual says, or I'm going to...
When I was younger, it was my dad.
Not any that are alive.
Yeah.
But that was, great point. Your dad, that's not alive. But I mean, it goes back to, in my thought, why? Why do I care? I can still like someone and not.
We're worse off that people actually.
In order for
my struggle with this is there's some things that a pro athlete represents very well. There's a lot of minorities in pro athletes, in pro athletics, and so their voice in saying, these here's a chance for me to make a positive change, I think is a positive thing. Like, if you can make a positive change and have a platform to make that positive change, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But there are other things that they're expounding on. If it's personal and they're expounding on it, great. If they don't have any knowledge, actual real knowledge about what I go back, I think Carson's point is well taken. Right? If you're talking about politics and you don't know what you're talking about, if you're talking about the war in Israel or you're talking about the war in Russia and you don't actually know, or Ukraine, excuse me, and you don't actually know what the hell you're talking about, then all you're doing is putting more disinformation in the system, which doesn't help anything.
Sure. If you're a Venezuelan baseball player and you live in, and now you're, American, are there any, Trev, give me a Venezuelan baseball player. You got any Venezuelan? It's got to be a
Jose Altuve.
Altuve. Yeah, he's a Venezuelan baseball player. So if he gets up and he goes, listen, folks, I see what's happening in the United States right now, and I want to tell you that I saw this happen in my own country, and this is how, and this is why I live in America now, because what is he doing?
That's how many live
That's how
here
many
in
Venezuelan
Houston.
baseball players.
That's how many live in Houston.
That's
just Houston.
Major League Baseball players from Venezuela. Okay, so if one of those guys, any one of them,
a second baseman.
Oh, that's a lot of them. I'm getting a little seasick just watching you scroll up and down. So, right, but if they go, listen, folks, here's what I think. This is what's happening. This is what I see happening. This is what happened in my country, right? Or even if he had the other opinion and he goes, listen, folks, this happened in my country. It was great. I loved it. So
we're beautiful.
So let it go. Right. That's why I live in America now. That would be different because you have a particular
set of actual knowledge and experience.
Yeah. Or if Yao Ming would have said, listen, this is what happened in China, they would have shot him and he wouldn't be here today.
Bingo.
So, but it's different. But when somebody who's just because I'm an athlete,
or I'm an actor and I have access.
Or I'm an actor, right? And I'm famous.
Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Oh, bam. Sorry.
This is going to go to Jeffrey Epstein really quick, so we're going to try to not. Yeah. I think I think. So the question is, or not the question, but the statement is, they have influence, and the fact that they have influence, you can't have influence unless there's a receptor to the influence, right? So I'm not necessarily saying that those pro athletes shouldn't say what they think, but I think the fact that they have influence on our society, we're worse off.
See, I don't know if you did this intentionally or not, but I think you did a nice job of bookending this, because I would not be surprised that a portion of the reason that those athletes have influence is because the kids were shoved in sports.
Yeah.
And they idolized whomever this person is, so they hang on every word that they may say. And I don't care what they have to say, really. I may agree, I may not agree, but I really just don't care, because I line towards do they know this any better than I do? I mean, I like to talk to people that know a subject.
Well, you're hitting on an interesting thing there, which is
some of them might.
The reason why we think they have influence, the reason why we think they have influence is because it gets reported in the media.
Oh yeah.
It gets reported in the media because they're famous.
But do they really have influence?
They have 7 million
followers. They only have influence because people just decide that, if they say it must be right.
But maybe 90% of the people out there are just like us, going, I don't really care what these guys have to say. In which case, you'd have to wonder, why is the media
reporting?
Because the media only reports stuff that they know that people are interested in. So I don't know. Maybe wheels within wheels. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Trev? Weigh on this one before we wrap up. Oh shit, it's a long one. 69 minutes.
Nice.
Can't end on.
If you say worse, then what's the alternative? Then what are you saying? Should they not have any? Period. Jeez. I think
not only women have periods.
If it was worded with if it was worded with should they have more, or is the fact that more of them have a bigger influence, then I would say it's worse off that way, because as you all said, they're not professionals in that field. But I think the fact that they do have an influence, because there are some positive outliers, such as with Venezuelan baseball, as there are 439 players from Venezuela apparently in MLB. I think that can be a good influence. So I think it's better, but not more.
So if you think about it purely conceptually, the notion that pro athletes have influence isn't necessarily a problem. The problem is that the pro athletes that are wielding the influence today are not demonstrating the right
It's the pro athletes themselves, but also the receivers of it. As I think Cully had mentioned,
I totally agree.
If you're, it's up to, it's up to the parents of the children or the older people who are receiving that influence.
Right.
I don't want to I don't want to remove the blame from or responsibility from them onto an outside source and just say, oh, it's an outside source's problem.
Yeah, I think a lot of the issue is people listening.
Yeah.
And not questioning.
Yeah.
Who is this person? Why are they saying it?
All right. You're the last one, Scott. You got to wait.
I'll say we're better. But I don't actually care. Like I don't listen. I don't listen to them.
Right. We got cherries.
Cherries.
I would have never guessed.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have either.
Yeah, you would have thought that we would have.
I was gonna go. Just go ahead and
just go ahead and put the lemons up there.
Just go.
Yeah.
All right. I got something similar for you guys. If we have just a few minutes.
Sure.
Scale of 1 to 5.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you 5 events in sports history.
Yeah.
1 being I cheer for this, like I stand up and applaud this event. 5 being I will never watch this person ever again because of this event.